Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fun Times in Statistics. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the idea of type 1 and type 2 error. This is just a quick little example to sort of explain to you what we're getting into with the ideas of type 1 and type 2 error. So, what we really want to do is we want to understand the interrelationship between type 1 and type 2 errors and kind of determine which error is a little bit more severe consequences for the situation. So, we're going to look at this example. A medical researcher wants to compare the effectiveness of two medications, and the null and alternative hypothesis are the null hypothesis is that on average, they're equal. This means that the medications are equally effective. And the alternative is they're not equal. Clearly, there's one that is more effective than the other. They don't have equal effectiveness. So we're thinking about the line of treatment we have here. So for this example, a type 1 error occurs if the researcher rejects the null hypothesis and concludes that the two medicines are different, when in fact they are not. So if the medications have the same effectiveness, the researcher may not have considered this error as too severe because the patient is still benefiting from the same level of effectiveness. This is one of the reasons why when we consider the type 1 and type 2 error, the type 1 error is usually considered the less severe. However, we really won't want to make either error. And I'll get into that when I get into that in more detail in the notes. And depending on who you are and what situation you're looking at, some people might argue that the type 2 error is worse, but the type 1 error is much easier to control, and therefore, you know, the one usually that we're okay with, making, so to speak. So the type 2 error in this instance would be that the researcher decides to fail to reject the null hypothesis when it should have been rejected, in which case he assumes that the two medications are actually equally effective when they're not. This could be very, very dangerous or life-threatening because it could be that one person should have been on the other medication because it was more effective and they were not. So this is usually why we consider the type 2 error a little bit more dangerous. This is also the reason why the type 2 error is called a false negative. It's often used in medical testing to represent what happens when we incorrectly report something as a negative in a medical test, and that's not a good thing. So as you conduct your hypothesis tests, consider the risk of making type 1 and type 2 errors. If the consequences of making one error type are more severely costly than the other, then usually that's the one we want to try to control and make as little as possible, and we choose our significant level that way. So just try to keep in mind the consequences of your actions or what might be wrong when you look at your errors. In business, this is not so severe as it is in medical testing, but if you're dealing with human beings or working in HR, you want to be a little bit more careful when it comes to your errors so you don't upset the apple cart, so to speak. That's all for this example. Thank you.